Hello everyone. May the good Lord give all of you peace. In Matthew's Gospel in the 18th chapter, Peter approaches Jesus and asks him, "Lord, if my brother sins against me, how often must I forgive him?" And I think we've all heard the answer that Jesus gives to Peter. "I say to you, not 7 times, but 70 times 7 times." That's an awful lot. And I think we all understand that it means forgive unendingly and limitlessly. And my friends, I think very often that's the hardest part of truly being a Christian, of truly being a follower of our Lord Jesus Christ. Almost every one of us could probably say, most of the time I'm able to forgive, but when my sister-in-law did this to me, when my father-in-law did that to me, when that boss cheated me out of a lot of money, when that business partner worked a shady deal on me, I'll never be able to forgive that. Well, I'd like to talk during this presentation about forgiving that, about how do we go about forgiving those really awful, terrible, and unjust things that have been done to us by others. Jesus really does want us to forgive, but how do we get there? I'd like to begin by suggesting a few things that forgiveness is not. Forgiveness is not just looking the other way and saying it doesn't matter. Now, looking the other way is a nice discipline to engage in for some of the small stuff. It prevents us from being angry and annoyed all the time. We let little things go. But even then, if the same little thing is done repeatedly, it's false charity not to bring it up. And of course, if something serious is done to us, we need to bring it up. I don't mean we need to go to the person and bite their head off and yell curses at them, but we need to go and to sit down and say, look, what you did really hurt me. You cheated me, you lied to me, you abused me. Whatever the situation is, we need to confront the person who did us wrong and give them a chance to present their side of the story. Another thing that forgiveness doesn't mean, it doesn't mean never get angry. I'm sorry, but if someone does something terribly unjust to me, I'm going to be angry, and I need to express that. That doesn't mean I need to engage in violence or seek vengeance or retaliate, but I need to express, yes, I'm angry that you stole from me, that you lied to me, whatever it is. We need to do that. A very important realization is the difference between reconciliation and forgiveness. I think that reconciliation is the ideal, and I've seen people truly reconcile after some awful hurts. I've seen marriages restored when I thought they were on the rocks due to infidelity, due to all kinds of other situations, mistrust building up and all of that. And I've seen marriages heal and rebuild after terrible hurts. I've seen family members, siblings, and other relatives make up after a long time, after someone cheated somebody out of money or something like that, and likewise with business partners. At the same time, that's not always possible. And the reason it's not always possible is because you and I might have all the good intentions in the world, but perhaps the other person is just not able or willing to engage in a process of reconciliation. Now, certainly, if you are a woman who has been abused, I don't think the good Lord expects you to go running back to a violent husband who's just going to beat you again. You need to stay away from him. He's dangerous. People in general who are prone to repeated acts of violence, it's not a good idea to go back to them until they've gone through some sort of a process of therapy or something like that. Also, for any number of other reasons, a person might be in the throes of alcoholism or addiction, and while they're still actively drinking or taking drugs, their mind isn't working right, and it's not going to be possible to reconcile if they've hurt you. Perhaps once they get into some sort of recovery, then it's a different story. Also, people who are mentally ill, it's not their fault that they're mentally ill, but they are, and again, they're not capable of engaging in a process of dialogue and reconciling and becoming your close friend once again. And sometimes the people who hurt us have died, or they've moved to some far off place, and we're left where we are with all this bitterness and resentment. Well, what do we do with that? Even then, when we can't reconcile, we can forgive. And what I mean by that is we can look within ourselves and say, you know, I have all this bitterness and anger and resentment, and by carrying it, I'm not doing any harm to the person who wronged me, I'm only hurting myself. So it's in my own self-interest to say, okay, I don't need this anger anymore, I have to let go of it. I met a man named Ted a few years ago on one of my parish missions, and Ted had forgiven his brother's murderer. Now, he didn't go and hug this man and become his buddy-buddy. The man was serving a life sentence in prison, but he decided that holding on to the anger and the bitterness was not doing anything to that man, and it was just bringing his life down. So he said, I have to let go of this. Of course, we all know we just can't snap our fingers and all these angers have gone. It takes time to heal. When Jesus says forgive 70 times, 7 times, I think he means not only to keep trying to forgive, you know, somebody who constantly annoys us and we keep trying to forgive them. I think it means sometimes that we have to pray 70 times, 7 times to ask the good Lord to help us to let go of anger that we're holding on to. I know in my own life I've been fortunate I haven't had any real terrible injustices done to me, but I was becoming an angry person because of several situations in my own life, and I couldn't just snap my fingers and get rid of the anger. But after continually praying, continually telling God, I want to let go of this, I want peace in my heart, little by little, that seems to take place. And maybe we'll all go to the grave with some of this bitterness and anger in our hearts, but I think if we can take a lot of the air out of the balloon, we'll know real peace in our hearts. So I urge people to do that. The last thing I would mention is that forgiveness is a decision. It is not a feeling. Sometimes people hear a sermon by a priest or a minister and they say, okay, I'm going to forgive, and then they think of the situation and all this bitterness wells up in their heart and they say, see, I can't forgive. No, those feelings are like the aftershocks after an earthquake. They're going to be there. But if we hang in there with our decision to forgive, if we say to the Lord, good Lord, please help me to drain this bitterness from my life, that prayer will be answered in God's good time. So I share these few thoughts with you with the hope that you might find peace in your own heart and begin to let out some of that anger that drags us all down. One final word of caution. I know that there are people, and maybe some who would be listening, watching this little video clip, who have been physically and sexually abused and been through other terrible, horrible, and traumatic experiences. In situations like that, one needs to seek help, to go to a therapist, to unload some of the shame, the rage, the anger, the hurt, before you can let go and move on and know forgiveness in some way. So for those who might need to do that, please do that. Please go with God and take the Lord along with you and pray through that whole experience. But for one and all, may God give you the peace that only He can give. Thank you.